So our family has a relationship with Barnes and Noble that goes way back, all the way back to, of course, when you guys were little kids, very little. We would take you constantly to various Barnes and Nobles. We would go on RV trips and we would look for Barnes and Nobles and we would all buy books. And then we would, be off on our next adventure with loaded down with all these books. And now to this day, even though we're not going on lots of trips, RV trips anymore, it seems like there's still a Barnes and Noble rhythm, right? That you guys are doing. What does that look like in your life right now?
Usually every Wednesday morning we go to Barnes& and Noble to do schoolwork, and I usually buy a few books,
Yes.
a few or 10. Don't call me out.
Yeah. All right. So something's happening at Barnes and Noble. I don't know if you guys know this. There was a takeover by I think it was either bought out. And so there's a woman that was describing the history and what they're trying to do to try to restore Barnes and Noble. So I want to get your guys' take on what's happening over there, since it's very important to our family what's happening. Let's try to understand this, get your guys' reaction.
A Barnes and Noble never felt like your local independent bookstore, but James Daunt wanted it to. So the strategy was no small feat to change the way these stores both looked and operated. Because problem number one, their CEO hated the way the stores looked. I have seen him use some very colorful language to describe the existing stores in all of my research for this video. He's called them boring, unengaging, ugly, and dispirited. And honestly, I have to agree. That green color that has dominated Barnes & Noble locations for as long as I can remember, I swear you can smell that green, like dust and mothballs. In the newer stores that they're opening and the ones that are getting remodels, all of the color choices are lighter and brighter, from the paint colors to the color of the wood of the bookshelves. A lot of stores moved from those massive box stores to smaller locations nearby, so it felt more intimate. And then the design of the interior changed as well. James Daunt wanted to focus on smaller tables, wider aisles, creating a layout that felt more like a maze, anything to make it more comfortable for you to stay a while and explore for new books. And as customers are poking around their new and improved Barnes & Noble, they may also notice that the books on offer appear to be a lot different. And that's because James Daunt made a very bold choice to hand over control of the inventory to the management of the individual stores. Previously, that was determined by corporate. But James Daunt knows that good booksellers, good bookstore managers, should have a finger on the pulse of who their customers are, what they want, what are the local interests in the area, what are their customers buying the most of. They should be the ones to choose what goes on the bookshelves. So he's allowing them to do that. He handed over the daunting task of letting them figure out what to order and where in the bookstore to place it. No more planograms, no more algorithms, just booksellers selling books. I've seen James Daunt call this the liberating of stores, and it really does feel that way. By doing this, they're allowing each individual location to function more like an indie that has a lot more of a local focus. And because they're taking so much feedback from their booksellers, many of whom are book-loving social media users, they're able to keep up way more with what's trendy, what books people want to get their hands on right this moment, what books are trending online. They can do that so much faster than if someone in corporate were in charge. There are two more small pieces to this overall strategy puzzle. One of them is de-emphasizing sidelines, or all of those items for sale in a bookstore that aren't books. As I said earlier, that had gotten pretty out of control in Barnes & Noble locations before, and now they're starting to rein it back in. And the other thing is something they're not doing anymore. They have completely ceased taking money from publishers to place books in a Barnes & Noble store in a specific highly visible location. Barnes & Noble earned a lot of revenue from publishers to do that in the past, but James Daunt says that that's leading to the kind of uniformity that he's desperately trying to get away from now in Barnes & Noble stores.
All right. So big changes going on. Now, this is a beloved store for our family. And for those of you guys who are listening to this, we really it does feel like almost like a theme park, the way our family treats Barnes and Noble. a theme park that has inspired, I think, so much of, your guys' love for reading and this and that we have the desire we have for books. I think a lot of families could really get to experience that as well. I think having a really good bookstore that your family has great memories around and gets immersed in. And so watching this video, I was really curious how you guys would react to this. So both like how you would describe the impact Barnes and Noble has had in our family culture, and how do you feel about the change that James Don he's the new CEO, and he really helped revive failing bookstore chain in Europe, and now he's coming across the pond to help us out. So I'll let you start, Sydney, because I'm sure you have some opinions.
I kind of want to know what his plans are for the kids sections, if he's gonna let them be or not, because those were so great when we were little. Like even while like past when I became a teenager, I kept visiting the kids sections because they were so fun and like they had such great memories and they're so colorful and they sometimes had like little games out, like the trains or something. Um, so I hope that they're not getting rid of the kids sections. There is one Barnes Noble that opened like 25 minutes from us that looks a lot more like how she's describing. Like they don't have the green. It looks very new and modern. It's like the bookshelves are like a maze and like it's wide open and stuff. Um and there are some things that I like about it and some things that I don't, because it does make it easier to browse and like look around and stuff, but it makes it harder to be there with like your family and like there's no seating areas or anything. It's like basically just for browsing and then buying your books and leaving. Um so that part isn't great because I love going to bookstores and just like staying there in the environment because I love just being around books. And so it's so fun to just go and be around there and um looking at all the bookshelves and all of that. And the displays do look pretty cool. Like I think it is a good idea for the individual branches to know what their community likes and the kinds of things that are ordered more, the kinds of things that kinds of genres that are loved more in that area. I think that does make sense. Yeah, I'm just wondering like what kinds of culture changes that will create, because Barnes and Noble used to look so like rustic or just like homey and cozy, and now it's like a little more modern, and I wonder if the cozy vibe is going to be decreasing in the favor of it being more trendy. So yeah, that's my concern. I'm not like super upset about it, but yeah, from what I've seen, I just wonder if it's going to just veer off from the typical bookstore vibe and more of like a retail store.
Yeah, in and out. Yeah, Lisa, what are your thoughts, and how have you experienced this as a part of our family's culture?
Yeah, well, I am not a huge fan of like sitting and reading for several hours or anything, or maybe for several hours and I'll get through like 5 pages because I get distracted. But like when I would go in there, I'd run like for the toys and the coloring books and the picture books. Like I was in the kids section until I was like 14 because there's a lot of like really pretty stuff there. And I recently got into collecting like folklore and fairy tales and myths and legends and things like that. And so I've explored more of Barnes and Noble every time we go. And they have started doing this thing where I don't know like where or why or how, but like they've just recovered all like a lot of their books as like special editions, something like that. They're so aesthetically pleasing, and like they're like I bought a lot. They're like leather with really pretty designs on them, with really like fairy tale art. Like when you open like the two cover pages, they're like a really pretty art. And it's just been a lot more like I feel like they got like paper books or like hardcover, even they're just like kind of whatever, like something you get at the library. But they're just become a lot more like valuable or something. I don't know.
That's
Because they're
cool.
just a lot more like substantial. And then yeah, we went to that new location and it was very exciting because it was their sections were so beautifully laid out, and then they have all those new looking books. I would say old looking because they're all like leather and stuff, but they're like all yeah, they're all new. And there's like this whole section that's so beautifully laid out with for like home farming and home plants, and then there's one that's all like fashion and stuff. So I was just like going through it, super easy to like look and see. And then there was kids and young adults, and so it's kind of like everybody in the family has like, if they have an interest, they just go off to their own section. But it is nice to be able to regroup, and like they usually have a Starbucks at their locations and things like that, where it makes a more fun outing. But they have done away with that with this one that we went to, which I agree is kind of like a shopping individual, like go run, grab a book, go home. So that's kind of sad. Like we all went there with our backpacks, like ready to sit down, and there was nowhere to sit. So I do enjoy how much more of the like bright sections there are. Very appealing, but there is less of a like chill atmosphere.
Yeah. I think it's so important for families to have third places like this. One of the reasons why I wanted to kind of bring it up. Barnes and Noble really functioned like that for our family and continues to for over the last 20 plus years. And yeah, I think it does something to your kids to have this recurring experience of a bookstore. So yeah, I definitely have very mixed feelings about this as well. I mean, I love the kids sections, the coziness, the sitting down, the grab a book, talk about a book, grab a cup of coffee, be there for hours and hours, which doesn't seem possible with these smaller, more trendy bookstore. So while you still can, if you guys have a Barnes and Noble near you and your family, and you want to create a book culture, story culture in your home, I can't recommend enough a weekly trip to Barnes and Noble, and just make it like an awesome experience for you and your kids.